listen, it's real spittin', you still wishing. Bigger vision, nigga, here's the difference. I do the shit that you can't do. I move the bricks that you can't move. You mad as fuck cause it's real life. I got the juice and I show improve. Close the trunk, I'm on a mission. My tires spinning, my lane switching. They camcording, I'm fast forwarding like fast spirits. You can't ignore it. Close the building, make the trap house, clear the table, bring the maps out. Here's the blueprint, about to do this. Get in line, nigga, we the rulers. Blau is hot hood, extra coolest. This some new shit, straight exclusive. I'm Doc Brown, nigga, I'm the future. Yo, main bitch gave me Medusa. Yo, click bout likes and shares. We don't like to share cause our type is rare. We fuck dykes, your type is square. And extra weird, stand over there. Make the picture, make it extra rare. And 100 proof, just like Everclear. Leaving your girl with her legs in the air like she tripped on the rug and she fell down the stairs. Damn, you think it's a joke, that's the reason you broke and you got all that smoke. But I hope that you didn't think you get away. Cut on that beat, I'ma kill him today. Hood X is multiplying, 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 multiplying. Hood X is multiplying, 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 multiplying. One thing's for certain, Hood X is working. We bout to hurt and pull back the curtain. All that flirting, that led to squirting, that led to twerking. When I put the perp in, I hit his beat and I shake my head cause I know it's on and these niggas dead. The game is mine, the game is locked. I'm in the streets and they in the bed. You can call the feds, you can call the cops, you can call them SWAT, you can call the chief. Beef is beef, nigga, I'm prepared. We count money in barber chairs. Grenade crash right through the window. Put the pistol right to his tempo. This is more than instrumental. I kosher no for these street credentials. I like a bitch hella thick like growing pains. She be making tapes like Lois Lane. He got a frozen chain but wasn't chose for fame. I'm Pat Say Jack, baby, I know the game. I'm an architect, you rap for free and disregard the check. I'll palm your neck with a Rolodex. You start to sweat, that's called a threat. Bomb your set like a blitzkrieg, then turn your crib into Swiss cheese. Also first to the 15th, then switch degrees like 10 speeds. 16th, I'm still comping like a sniper rifle on the hill dumping. I ain't never gotta steal from you, I'm killmonger, this real hunger. I think I perfected my aim, I go for the neck and the chain. I got a collection like change, put some respect on my name. On your mark, set your watches, bitch, we going in. I'm talking money to you, that's a language you can't comprehend. Did I go against the grain, nigga? It depends, she mad I fucked the roommate. I told her that we can still be friends. You can't swim in this water because it get deep. You stuck on stupid like you got 6 feet. You running in circles like it's a track meet. Fuck you talking about, my nigga. I jack beats, chopping the brick and we breaking it down. Hopping the whip and we riding around. Taking the city, we choosing the time till we finding the spot and we locking it down. Haters is talking with nothing to say. They riding on cushion, I'm rolling on hay. Rolling and ducking and hiding from me. Nothing to say, they tucking they heat. All of these niggas got nothing on me. They talking they shit but can't fuck with Malik. You liking the shit that I do to this beat? Wait till you see what I do to the streets. Fuck a Maybach, nigga, I got a limousine. And fuck it.
Alright, fuck all that shit. Let me turn this shit down, man. Fuck. Shit too long, man. Song too fucking long. I ain't shorten that shit. What up, peoples? Alright. Making this video. Alright, it says, right now I'm doing this, it says the name of this video is called My Birth Chart, which is not what the fuck. That was actually the last video. I don't know why I updated my live and it's just telling me that it's still the same, the name of the video. The actual name of this video is called Dances with Wolves. Alright. I wanted to do a video about this for a long time, and I still don't have the information 100% like where I really want it, but I'm just saying, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. Because this information has been pushing me to get it out. And I really didn't know how to exactly do this, so I just said, fuck it, I'm going to do it. So, we want to say what up to Maximilian, what up to Rhonda Lewis, you know what I'm saying, appreciate y'all, you know, chiming in, y'all the first ones to get in there, I appreciate it. Also want to tell everybody, make sure you sign up for my Patreon, because, a lot of information on this channel is about to get filtered. Basically, I'm putting a lot more information on my Patreon than on this page. A lot of the videos on this page are going to be getting a lot shorter, and a lot of more pertinent, raw, rare information is going to be on my Patreon. A lot of people steal information from this page, believe it or not. And I don't, mind people, using my information. It just be like, man, just at least give me my damn props, man. You know what I'm saying? Don't just take my shit and run with it. So, like, I was like, you know what? If you want to get access to the real exclusive content on this channel, you will have to sign up for my Patreon. Hold on one second. Let me close my door. Alright, so name of this video is called Dancing with Wolves. Dancing with Wolves. I named this because, man, it's a lot of information I'm going to be covering in this video, but mainly it's called Dancing with Wolves because I wanted to speak on an aspect of I want to say the occult, the mystery schools, um, comedics. A lot of these things get intertwined because there's a lot of um, misinformation out here, and there's a lot of information out here that's just not clarified. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to give some basic clarity. You know what I'm saying? So when you go do this type of research, you know what the fuck you talking about, man. Because there's so much bullshit out here that motherfuckers need to know what the fuck the real truth is. You see what I'm saying? So you can add on to more research in this, and you find out more truths. You know what I'm saying? I would love to, you know what I'm saying, read your comments. So make sure you leave some comments. You know what I'm saying? If you find more information about this. All right. So here we go. This video basically takes us back to ancient Egypt, where we're gonna start at when when Moses was basically taken, was put in a basket and sent into Egypt. You see what I'm saying? Now this is when you go into mixing the historical fact with biblical myth, shit get fucking great. This is where a lot of the bullshit kick in. You see what I'm saying? So I'm gonna just give you some reference points in regards to what the biblical times is saying as far as Moses, you know what I'm saying, coming into Egypt. You gotta understand, like by that time, this was no longer like ancient Egypt. You see what I'm saying? Like this Egypt was, you know, starting to move toward the fall of ancient Egypt. You know what I'm saying? It was, I believe it was like 30 dynasties in Egypt. You know what I'm saying? And the one that basically Moses and them was going through was called, I believe it's called the Thebes dynasty. You see what I'm saying? And this era is classic in Egypt for like a revolt. Like it was this, basically, to sum it all up, long story short, it was this big ass revolt going on like in ancient Egypt. You see what I'm saying? When you talk about comedics, you talking about like ancient, like the beginning of Egypt. You see what I'm saying? By the time the Bible come around, this is like already like 17, 18 dynasties deep into Egypt. So it ain't the original Egypt. Like, you see what I'm saying? You talking like over 4,000 or 5,000, damn, like 3, 4, maybe 5,000 years had passed in Egypt by the time you get to the Moses story. So there's so much history that transpired by the time you get to this point. And like by the time you get to this point in the Thebes dynasty, you got shit like the Hyksos, you know what I'm saying, who is basically like who the Comedics referred to as like shepherd people. You see what I'm saying? They was like basically like lepers. You see what I'm saying? Like in mind you, the reference they have for this was Cain. Like if you read the story of what happened to Cain in the Bible, you see what I'm saying? Cain was like cursed. You see what I'm saying? Because he killed his brother. He was the first killer in the Bible. So like he was cursed. And they basically gave him what's called the mark of Cain. Now, they never really tell you what the mark of Cain is. A lot of, you know, fucking what's the word? Like disagreements about what the mark of Cain actually was. But overall, you know what I'm saying, what it really came down to is people said basically God gave Cain a dog. You can look the shit up yourself. You know what I'm saying? He gave him a dog. So apparently, like, that was the mark of Cain, was basically like a dog. You see what I'm saying? So, also other things happened to Cain too, like he grew a horn. You know what I'm saying? He basically became like an outcast, and he moved into what was called the land of Nod and built the first city, you know what I'm saying, with his son Enoch. Now, why am I telling you this? Because like this is leading you toward symbols that's going to come later on, you know what I'm saying, as you know, time progresses. You know what I'm saying? So you got to understand, like Adam and Eve had two sons, Cain and Abel. You know what I'm saying? Cain killed Abel. You know what I'm saying? Cain ended up living like in the wilderness. You know what I'm saying? Seth, who was the third son, basically who came along and gave birth to the whole lineage of what you know now is like Abraham, like Noah and Enoch. You know what I'm saying? All that, like Shem, Ham, all them people came later on from the lineage of what was called Seth. A lot of people don't know Seth was the third son of Adam and Eve, if you actually do the research. You know what I'm saying? So, but meanwhile, you know what I'm saying, what happened with Cain and his family, like they became like some outcasts. You know what I'm saying? They basically like was living in the desert, literally. You know what I'm saying? So different references, you know what I'm saying, as time went on before, you know, this is years before Christianity, you know what I'm saying? But like different references started to come up, you know what I'm saying, in regards to, you know what I'm saying, the culture. You talking about Cain and like his kids, you know what I'm saying, Enoch and, you know, the first city builders, and he had some grandsons. I think their name was like Jabal and Jubal, which basically were like the first like shepherds. You see what I'm saying? And like the whole culture of like a shepherd living like with animals. You know what I'm saying? It was a concept called what's it called, man? Animal husbandry. As animal husbandry. You see what I'm saying? This is the concept of like domesticating animals. You know what I'm saying? But like not on a farm, but like animals actually living with you, like sleeping in the bed with animals. You know what I'm saying? Like there was no farms back then. It was like literally there was no separation between the animals and like the people. You see what I'm saying? And this is literally what Cain's, you know what I'm saying, descendants had become. Like they were like animal domesticators per se. Like they weren't necessarily shepherds. Like the concept of a shepherd didn't come till later on. You see what I'm saying? So the only real reference you had for animal husbandry was this dude named Jabal. You see what I'm saying? Jabal, Jabal, who was the son of Cain. You see what I'm saying? So like it's rumored, you know what I'm saying, that like these were the dudes who first started sleeping with animals and shit like this. You know what I'm saying? And you know, this is Paul, let me take you here to, you know what I'm saying, to give you a preface, you know what I'm saying, of, you know what I'm saying, eventually what happened later on when it came to Moses. Like you're saying, like in Moses, you know, there's a whole separate line of family. Like Cain, his whole family went that way, and you got Seth and his whole family went this way, you know what I'm saying, moving toward the Abraham way. You know what I'm saying? But meanwhile, Cain and his whole family is still out there, like in the wilderness. So as years go on, you know what I'm saying, like I said, Moses eventually, basically, like you understand, like Moses grew up as an ordained Egyptian priest, but he was actually Hebrew. You see what I'm saying? So he actually knew everything that the Egyptians knew, you know what I'm saying, but he wasn't a Egyptian. He wasn't Kemetic. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, this was at a time where like this was happening all over ancient Egypt. Like none of the people in Egypt at the time was like real fucking Egyptian. You know what I'm saying? So you know, Moses eventually he killed somebody. You know what I'm saying? Similar to like what Cain did with Abel. You know what I'm saying? He killed somebody and ended up like moving into he was in the desert. You know what I'm saying? And this is when he realized that he was a Hebrew. You know what I'm saying? And came back into Egypt and basically told the Pharaoh to let his people go. You see what I'm saying? And this is all, you know, Hebrew myth. Now, if you read the story of Manetho, 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 this is a story about like 5,000 years before the Bible that tells a similar. I've said this in another video. You know what I'm saying? That it tells a similar story of Exodus, and that like they give a story of like all these lepers. You know what I'm saying? They call them lepers. You know what I'm saying? Shepherd people. You know what I'm saying? That was living like basically in the fucking mountains and shit. Like they was not in Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Like all of these people. Like they call them Hyksos. They were like Hicks, basically. Like you know what I'm saying, coming into Egypt, people, motherfuckers who had disease, motherfuckers who was sick, motherfuckers who was lepers, was coming into Egypt. You know what I'm saying? And this is the same reason why the king wanted Moses killed. This is the reason why they put Moses in a basket. You know what I'm saying? And sent him in the river. You know what I'm saying? They were trying to kill him because they were doing population reduction because there was a rumor going around that you know, astrologers knew that just like with Jesus being born, if there was a Moses was being born and that it was going to represent the downfall of Egypt. You see what I'm saying? So they were trying to kill all of the Hebrew kids at this time, and Moses ended up in the basket and actually ended up on the doorstep. The one dude they were trying to kill ended up on his doorstep, and they raised him and basically taught him to be a fully ordained Egyptian priest. In all of the mystery schools, he knew all of the Netunida, he knew all of the symbols, the math, and all this, but he was a Hebrew. You know what I'm saying? So eventually, when they took the people up, you know, when Moses came and got his people and they left up out of Egypt, you know what I'm saying? They basically went into the mountains, into the wilderness where Cain and his whole family, you know what I'm saying, had been basically for years. You know what I'm saying? And like, this is where the shit starts to get real gray and that a lot of people misinterpret and read shit fucked up. You know what I'm saying? So like, you gotta understand, like, when the Hyksos and the, you know what I'm saying, the we call it Hebrews, when they left, you know what I'm saying, they different parts of them started, you know, scatter around different parts of, you know, throughout Europe, you know what I'm saying, through England, shit like Saudi Arabia, which is what was called known as like Asiatic. Like you ever heard the term Asiatic? You know what I'm saying? these is like black people that was like in Saudi Arabia and shit like that. It was already kind of, they weren't from Egypt. Like they were kind of like outside of Egypt, you know what I'm saying? And like in the mountains and shit like this, where it was like, it was no civilization. Like these motherfuckers like literally out there living with animals. You see what I'm saying? So, you especially like in the cold mountains, like you go like certain areas like Iceland, Scandinavia, like all the way the fuck up there, like where these are what's called Germanic tribes, like, or like the Anglo-Saxons, like this is where these motherfuckers was living at. They was like literally living in the fucking cold ass mountains, like eating animals, like eating hell. Like, this is where you get the term, what's that shit called, man? Abdominal snowman. You know what I'm saying? The dude with all the fucking hair all over him, like saying literally, like go watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. They tell you a story like the abdominal snowman. You know what I'm saying? So like you had these type of people who was basically like somewhat descendants of Cain. You know what I'm saying? Who was really descendants of Adam and Eve. You know what I'm saying? But like, you know, like they all living out here in these fucking mountains. You know what I'm saying? They living with animals, basically sleeping with animals. This is what like I said, concept animal husbandry. You know what I'm saying? Sleeping with animals. So then you get one of the main threats of living out here in these types of societies was the wolf. You know what I'm saying? So like the wolf eventually, like you do the research, they say, where do dogs come from? They might say dogs basically fucking evolved from wolves. You know what I'm saying? So like wolves living in the cold, living in the mountain, living like, and you start going to like we say like upper like you talking about like Saudi Arabia, especially areas like Kazakhstan, areas like Germany, all these type of areas and shit like this. You start killing like horses. There was no horses in Egypt. Different types of animals that like motherfuckers in Egypt had never seen before. This is when all this shit started to come into fucking Egypt. When you're seeing like right around that time, like when toward the fall of Egypt, and when they all started to leave up out of there and then going all into the mountains and going all up into, you know, saying different areas outside of Egypt. This is when like you get intermingling with like motherfuckers sleeping with wolves, wolves attacking whole. Like wolves was like one of the most major things that they had to deal with in like living in the mountains and being attacked by wolves, and like your relationship with wolves, and like understand. This is why the name of this video is called Dancing with Wolves, because like these people literally, it was like either you was gonna become a wolf. It was like UFC Training Day, like Denzel kind of said some shit like this. It was like either you was gonna become a wolf or you was gonna get ate by wolves. You know what I'm saying? And like the concept werewolf actually means man wolf. You know what I'm saying? And like, you know, if you do research on Rome, like Rome, ancient Rome, they'll tell you that like it was started by these two twin brothers named Romulus and Remus, and like they was raised by wolves. You know what I'm saying? It was a wolf. It was a she-wolf woman that raised them. You know what I'm saying? This is how Rome actually started. You know what I'm saying? So, and like I said, if you do more research on like where dogs came from, and especially you look up, you see like dogs have 84% of like human DNA. You see what I'm saying? So, there's a lot of research basically showing that like, you know, over years and years of like people like living in the woods, interacting with wolves, you know what I'm saying? Wolves and humans became like, I don't want to say one, but they became like the Germanic tribes, like all the people left up out of Egypt and basically was living in like what's called like what's this shit? Not not Czechoslovakia, but man, I can't think. I can't think of. Like Germany is really, it's what is it? Scandinavia, I think it is Scandinavia. Like up at Germany and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? They started basically having relationships with wolves because they were living, and you gotta understand, like if you living in the cold and you know what I'm saying, hunting for food, you know, if you can't hunt for food, this is where like the whole concept of like animal husbandry came from. It's like you had to maintain a flock of animals because like if you ever went out hunting and there wasn't no food, you wanted animals there, you know what I'm saying, to eat. So like the whole concept of like taking care of animals, you know what I'm saying, and like because you didn't have vegetation, you know what I'm saying, so you literally had to like practice killing. You needed metals and shit like this, where like the whole Iron Age and the Bronze Age, and like you know what I'm saying, the ability to like control metals and shit like this, all came from, and that like you had to know how to kill animals, cook the meat, and eat the meat. You know what I'm saying? You weren't eating vegetation and shit like that. You was living in the fucking mountains. You know what I'm saying? So like all you literally ate was meat. And what happened was the wolves would smell the meat, and the wolves would follow these packs. You see what I'm saying? Like they would follow these packs of humans and then attack them. But then what happened over a while, you know what I'm saying? These, European slash Germanic people, what they ended up starting to do was like, kill the wolves. So they started like attacking wolves. So like you had wolves attacking humans, and you had humans attacking wolves. And then eventually what happened was the wolves started to learn that like, okay, we don't have to attack these people no more. If you just sit back and let them eat, they're gonna feed us our scraps. They're gonna feed us the scraps. So like the wolves ended up like being domesticated by Germans basically domesticated wolves, which eventually like turned into dogs. You see what I'm saying? And mind you, like I say, if you go back, the mark of Cain is actually a dog. You see what I'm saying? So these people was like, this is how you can like werewolves, half man, half wolf. I know this shit sound crazy. You see what I'm saying? But if you do the fucking research, you'll see I'm not making this up. This is where dogs came from. This is why don't nobody know where the fuck dogs came from. But it takes like thousands and thousands of years of like, you'll see interacting with wolves, sleeping with wolves. You know what I'm saying? And you develop all these different types of animals. You know what I'm saying? That like a lot of them at the time looked like they look like family. And like I said, this is not a far stretch. If you look up the beginning of Rome, like I said, they were raised by wolves. You see what I'm saying? So, when you look at the concept of like where Vikings came from, you look at the concept of like where Germanic tribes and shit like this, there's a totally separate type of like white man from like the German white man is a totally different type of white man from like the European white man or like the Roman white man, the Greek white man. It's like the German white man. These are the same white men who like ransacked Rome, like when the fall of Rome came. You'll say these are the same people who invaded Rome and fucked up Rome. You see what I'm saying? Feel like barbarians and shit. You see what I'm saying? They worship Norse gods. You know what I'm saying? Vikings. Like you do research on Vikings. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers, like you look at Thor, like the movie Thor that just came out recently, like Odin and Thor. You know what I'm saying? If you understand what's going on, like right now up in Europe, you know what I'm saying? There's a whole revolution now of like occultic, like the occult, people worshiping Odin. They actually call him Woden. You know what I'm saying? W-O-D-N, Hail Woden is the things they say. You know what I'm saying? People starting to practice worshiping Thor again. You know what I'm saying? These Eastern European type people, like you talking about, like I said, Germans and shit like this. Like they practice a Norse mythology, shit like this. So they got a whole different belief system from Christianity. You see what I'm saying? A lot of people don't know, like Germany was converted over into Christianity. Like these were not originally Christians. These motherfuckers was like occultists and shit like this. You know what I'm saying? They pagans. They study folklore and stuff like this, but a lot of their shit is based on wolf. Like you have to understand like what the wolf is. Like when you're dealing with like Germany and Germanic tribes. You see what I'm saying? Now, there's a concept called Beowulf. Speaking of wolf, you know what I'm saying? If you know the story called Beowulf, you know what I'm saying? Beowulf is an old tale that was told by, you know what I'm saying, Germanic people, you know what I'm saying, about this guy named, and pause this side note, you understand, like a lot of Germans, they add the name wolf to their name, like Beowulf, you know what I'm saying? The actual name Adolf is actually, it means wolf. It means like noble wolf or something like that. Like Adolf Hitler. It means, I believe, noble wolf. I'm looking at my notes, make sure I'm saying this shit right. You know what I'm saying? So, and then like you got the name like Wolfgang. I don't know if you heard this name, Wolfgang. Like, there's a famous musician named Wolfgang. You know what I'm saying? Same thing comes from the concept of the Germanic tribes. You know what I'm saying? And then you got the concept of lichens. Lichens is I believe it was a ancient Greek concept, in that like Zeus had a son that he basically, it's up to the concept of like you had to eat a human. You know what I'm saying? And by eating that human, like Zeus' son was basically like I believe was like started this whole thing. His name was like Lycan. This is where you watch the movie Underworld, where they call the werewolves lichens in this movie. This is where this whole thing come from. and then he started the festival of like human sacrifice and like eating human flesh, and then you actually absorbed the energy of the person that you ate. Now this stuff was written in Germanic law. Like if you actually read Germanic law, like this was in their law. It was like, okay, like you were supposed to like this is a concept kind of like with Beowulf, the whole mythology, all this stuff was all written into their law. You know what I'm saying? So like if you understand like what Germans was like barbarians. Like before they were Germans couldn't even read. You know what I'm saying? Like before, I believe it was like Rome or maybe Greece was the people that like introduced reading and writing to the German people. Like up to that point, like Germans was like barbarians and like warriors who thought they was wolves. Like literally thought they was wolves. And if you gotta understand how that whole shit came up out of Egypt and moved into the mountains, you know what I'm saying? And like them interacting with wolves. This is where all this shit came from. So, and mind you, like it was people already out there, you know what I'm saying, in the wilderness prior to like leaving, you know, Egypt. This is what they call the Asiatics, like the Asiatic black man, or like, you know what I'm saying, the Indians, the Saudi Arabians, all these motherfuckers who was like walking around in the desert with fucking camels and goats and all this shit. Like all of this is based on, you know, that's why I'm making this video, Dancing Wolves, because it's all in the same similar energy. You know what I'm saying? So, in the story Beowulf, it's about this guy, you know what I'm saying, who's basically like he was like a German, basically, you know what I'm saying, defeating this half man, half wolf creature named Grendel. You know what I'm saying? If you look this up, Grendel, basically like Bigfoot. You know what I'm saying? Like if you go look at the movie Beowulf, you see what I'm saying? Like Grendel is basically like a half man, half wolf, half ape looking thing. Look like Bigfoot / Chewbacca / what's that nigga name, man? I just said it. Snowman, the abominable snowman. You know what I'm saying? Oh, like you ever see Cousin It with the long ass hair? Kind of look the same. It's like all the same shit, basically. You know what I'm saying? So you got this dude named Grendel, and you had Beowulf basically defeating Grendel. You see what I'm saying? So he was like a wolf defeating a werewolf. You know what I'm saying? It's like one of the first, you know what I'm saying, stories that you would have heard as a child growing up. Like if you grew up over in fucking, you know, over in Germany, you know, ancient Germany at the time, you would probably heard, you know, and not just Germany, you know what I'm saying? So, all of these, like we talking about Scandinavia, Iceland, Norway, Denmark, like all of these places prior to Christianity, like this is their belief system. Like they believe in occultism and like pagan shit. And then, like there's a high, ever since the Thor, like in the past maybe 20, 30 years, there's been a high emergence of this culture, especially when the fucking Thor movies came out. And side note, a lot of people pissed off that they had Idris Elba play that. You had a black dude, I forget the name of the character, but a lot of people was pissed off about that. Like the original, like the Nordic cultures and shit, like they were fucking pissed. But yeah, so you had this concept in Beowulf, basically like, you know, basically change your name to a wolf, and you know, becoming like this warrior. So like this stuff got incorporated into Germanic law. So like the Germans literally saw themselves as wolves. This is why their culture was the way it was. They were like literally, this is where Vikings and shit came from. You see what I'm saying? So time continues to go on. Oh yeah, side note too, the word pastor, you look at like pastor, like the word pastor, you think of a priest and we think of pastor, but then you think of like pasteurized milk. Pasteurized means what we were talking about earlier, which would mean like animal husbandry. Look this word up, animal husbandry. It's totally separate from domestication. Animal husbandry is like literally you like the animal's husband. You see what I'm saying? So a pastor was literally like the husband of the flock. That was where the word pastor, that was the original name for pastor. So when you see like the Jewish concept, like the Hebrew / Christianity concept of the word pastor, you see what I'm saying? What they're referring to you as is like, he is like the father of this animal flock. It's not like comedics, you know what I'm saying, where it's based on math and like, you know, godship and stuff like this. No, this is based on more like Germanic concepts of like eating flesh. Like this is where you get this concept in the Christianity, you know, the Eucharist, where you eat the flesh of Christ, you know what I'm saying? Eating flesh, cannibalism, all this stuff came from like lichen. If you look up the concept of lichens, it was before you use the word cannibalism, understand what a lichen is. You know what I'm saying? Lichen, like I said, it was the concept of Zeus, basically and his son basically eating flesh. You know, so this is where this shit came from. So even the ancient Comedics referred to the Hyksos, the people who left up out of Egypt, they referred to them as the shepherd kings, the people who basically like looked after the flock. So you have to like be in the mindset of like, okay, inside Egypt, inside Kemet, you got you know, cities, civilization, numbers, math. We was kings. You know, a lot of you people say this shit, and we was kings. You know, this is what they mean when they say that we was kings. And they're like, okay, you got, you know, shit going on in Egypt, building civilization, but then you got like motherfuckers living in the caves and the mountains, sleeping with animals and fucking, you know what I'm saying, like living off of meat and flesh and shit like this, like totally different. You know, like the Vikings, basically. Like you compare the Vikings to the Egyptians, basically. You see what I'm saying? So this is where you get this shit coming from. You know what I'm saying? And there's influence from different cultures, but it all comes outside. Like there's a difference between like Greek culture, you know what I'm saying, Greek gods, Roman culture, and then like the Germanic type of culture, like the German white man. You know what I'm saying? Totally different type of white man. Mind you, like the word German, like they don't refer to themselves as German. You know what I'm saying? Like the German, like you gotta listen to what you're saying. You're like German. This is some shit that was like incorporated by Romans, Greeks, like the people who was basically studying the Germans. You know what I'm saying? As something separate. They saw them as like germ people, like people who was like coming outside and like was like wolves attacking the flocks, killing the basically killing the people. Like you said, you look at Rome. This is basically what happened to Rome. You know what I'm saying? So us, like me as a black man in America, I had no idea that like, okay, that there was like different ideologies between, you know what I'm saying, like the Indo-European white man versus like the traditional European white man versus like the German white man. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know this shit. You know what I'm saying? And it's a lot of the information to get blended up where like you don't really understand it. Like, okay, like all of this shit is foreign if you in a comedic mindset. You see what I'm saying? You talking about werewolves and shit like this. It's like, okay, like, do werewolves really exist? It'd be like, yeah, motherfucker. And then like, if you look at like over in Kazakhstan right now, you see what I'm saying? What's the name of that shit? Kazakhstan has a concept of a guy named give me a second. It is called the Kiyik Atom. Kiyik. Kiyik Atom. The Kiyik Atom. You know what I'm saying? Which is basically like a werewolf, but it's not a werewolf. It's more like Bigfoot. You see what I'm saying? And then you got like, you know, in the South they have like dozens of stories of seeing Bigfoot. But then what you realize is that like they're not all Bigfoot, and they're like there's multiple Bigfoots. Like the more you research this, you start to see like Bigfoot is just not one. It's like a whole tribe of these things. You know what I'm saying? And they all have different names. You know, if you look into, I believe it's Arkansas, you know what I'm saying, they have a concept of a monster called the Fouk monster, Fouke, the Fouk monster. Davy Crockett, I don't know if you heard Davy Crockett, he was reported as seeing Bigfoot way the fuck back in like 1700s, 1600s, some shit like that. He was reported seeing Bigfoot way back then. In Florida, they have one called the Fairvilla Gorilla. It's Fairvilla, Fairvilla Gorilla. Same shit, Bigfoot. And Texas, they have a different Bigfoot. The name of it, I don't know exactly, but oh yeah. The Mongolian monster, Mogollon monster, the Mongolian monster. You know, the character Chewbacca, you know, from Star Wars, like if you look him up, they'll tell you that he was influenced by a dog and a lemur, you know, and if you do the research at Kazakhstan, like if you gotta do a lot of research on this, you know what I'm saying, but the Kiyik Atom is believed that it's a cross between a human and a lemur. They believe that, you know, over time, these, you know, different people who had different types of practitionership, especially like the German motherfuckers, like they've always been known for like mixing different types of animals and DNA and shit like this. You see what I'm saying? And mind you, like I don't have no solid. This is not gospel. You know, this is all just research shit. You know, see on the internet. But like it was just a belief that they were mixing different types of forms of humans. You got like half dog, half human. Matter of fact, there's a what is his name? There's a Christian saint with a dog head. I'll tell you his name right now. Saint with a dog head. What is his name? Saint Christopher. You know what I'm saying? Look up Saint Christopher. You know, he has exactly what we're talking about. He has he's half human, half dog, but he's more like his whole face is basically like a dog. You know, and if you look up a lot of people over in Kazakhstan or like even people in Mexico, like their whole face be like covered with hair, basically like Chewbacca or like Cousin It. You ever seen this type of concept before? You know what I'm saying? If you were in Kemetic, I mean, if you were from Kemet, you know what I'm saying, and you looking at the Hyksos come into the land, like this is what you see. As I hope you getting this point. It's like the name of this video is called Dancing with Wolves. You see what I'm saying? I have an ancient Kemetic mind frame. You see what I'm saying? So like when when I look at it from this concept, I can see kind of like okay, like animal instinct, animal patriotism, shepherd people, shepherd kings. You know what I'm saying? People who are treating people like groups of flocks of people. There's a concept called Orion. You know what I'm saying? I talk about on this page as well. And they're like their gods are more pertaining to that. Whereas like if you look at the Kemetic deities, it's a totally different it date back further. You see what I'm saying? So you get more more answers to the questions that you got. In that, like, you know what I'm saying, it's more math than barbaric. You see what I'm saying? You're not dealing with like flesh and sacrifice and killing and murder. It's just more like math and knowledge and science. You know, another concept too is a lot of people believe that Odin and Jehovah, even though they have two different mythologies, a lot of people believe that they look the same, and that like the Christian concept of Yahweh, the way he looked, is actually like the face of Odin. You know what I'm saying? Like with the long white beard, you know what I'm saying? Kind of look like, what's the guy's name from Harry Potter? The wizard from Harry Potter, I can't think of his name. But like when you start seeing, that old, like the Santa Claus look with the old long white beard, like this is like Norse. It's like a Norse mythology. You know what I'm saying? So like, back then them kind of borrowing from that ideology. Well, like this is the face of they God. You see what I'm saying? And that like this is not the face of, what you talking about, Asar, Aset, Tehuti, the original Kemetic deities. Like they motherfuckers don't look shit like this. You see what I'm saying? So there's a group of people who call like the Thulians. This is like Nazi Germany occultism. You know what I'm saying? They got you have to understand it's a totally different mind from the Christian mind, from the Indo-European Christian mind. You know what I'm saying? I want you to really understand it. So they have like a belief in that, the werewolf is kind of like I don't want to say like a god, but it's like the concept of like a man wolf, like becoming a man or wolf is literally like it's part of their like law. Law ain't really the right word, but it's part of their belief system. So you have to understand, like when the Spanish Inquisition came, like you got to understand, like throughout the fucking early it was like the late BC all the way up to like maybe fucking like 1600s, like they had this shit called the Inquisition. Well, like if you study any of this shit, I would have got killed for talking the shit that I'm talking on this page. Like motherfuckers would have straight killed me. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like it was considered witchcraft. So like even Galileo, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if y'all know who Galileo is. As a matter of fact, today is Galileo's birthday. You know what I'm saying? February 15th. Happy birthday, Galileo. You know what I'm saying? Galileo was one of the most inspiring minds in the whole fucking galaxy. You know what I'm saying? Up to that point, like the things he discovered for science was things that have never been discovered ever, as far as the order of the planets, the way we view it, all of these things. But he had to basically come out and say that it was bullshit, because it was described as hearsay. The Roman Catholic Church said that what he was doing was hearsay, you see what I'm saying? And it was like basically like satanic. It was like witchcraft, you see what I'm saying? So he ended up spending the rest of his life in jail, you see what I'm saying? Even though he made like some of the most revolutionary scientific discoveries of all time, you know what I'm saying? Because they had this thing called the Spanish Inquisition going on, you see what I'm saying? Where they were killing like thousands and thousands and thousands of people, you see what I'm saying? So you have to understand, like, you a lot of us miss this perspective. Like matter side note, they got some shit on Netflix right now called Castlevania. It's an animated shit. If you want a little bit more, um, just you want some cool shit about the fucking Inquisition, you know what I'm saying? Watch Castlevania on fucking Netflix. You know what I'm saying? They kind of go into this a little bit, but you have to understand, like, you talking about the concepts like werewolves and shit like this. From the Christian standpoint, from the Catholic standpoint, you know what I'm saying? Back then, werewolves was Germans. You gotta get this in your fucking head. And then, like, the German mind was not, and not just Germans too, a lot of older, like, European motherfuckers and shit like this. You know what I'm saying? These motherfuckers was being killed left and right. They was like torturing these motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? Because their law was written toward this belief system. Exactly what I'm talking about. Like, these motherfuckers literally trying to turn into wolves. You see what I'm saying? So the Christian mind was like, okay, like, they read German law, they be like, mind you, like, you couldn't even read, like, the Germans couldn't even write. If you look at the film Underworld, you go watch Underworld, you see a lot of this shit still kind of playing. Like, they look at the fucking werewolves like savages, like barbarians and shit. You see what I'm saying? Like fucking flesh eating crazy motherfuckers. You see what I'm saying? When you look at Sasquatch and you look at what they call the missing link, Chewbacca, or fucking the snowman, whatever the fuck that's like a domesticated version of a werewolf. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a hybrid man wolf looking thing. A lot of comedics, some comedics believe that, like, that is their god. Chewbacca, like Wookiees, Wookiees are in Star Trek. Like, a lot of motherfuckers believe that, like, that's what Yahweh looked like. I've talked to certain comedics who believe that shit. That like Yahweh is basically like damn it like a werewolf. It kind of looked like Saint Christopher, you know what I'm saying, and from Christianity. So are werewolves real? Yes, depending on how you look at it. You see what I'm saying? If you was a Christian back in the time of the Inquisition, you see what I'm saying, and you understood that, like, you had these Germanic tribes, these Viking/warrior type motherfuckers who basically was sleeping with animals and starting whole civilizations based on the mind frame of, like, literally becoming a wolf. You know what I'm saying? You would kind of see the concept of, like, the werewolf. Like, man, you got motherfuckers walking around fully covered with fucking hairy as fuck. Damn, they're looking like walking dogs, walking wolves. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you would think, you know what I'm saying? Especially, like, when you go into the concept of, like, these motherfuckers run around biting motherfuckers and chewing motherfuckers and eating people, eating flesh, like lichens and shit like this. Like, yeah, like, the Christian concept of a werewolf was, put on to people based on this shit that was going on. And it helped them really push the envelope of the Inquisition even more. In that, like, they, it's kind of romanticizing ideas of, like, people turning into wolves and coming to eat you and kill you. You see what I'm saying? These are fucking Germans. Matter of fact, if you watch the movie Thor Ragnarok, the Hulk was fighting this wolf. I can't even think of the name. Like, that wolf. That's an actual myth. Like, I can't, like, that wolf got a name. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a whole history behind that wolf. You know what I'm saying? It was like Loki's son, or like Loki's dog, or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know the whole fucking aspect of it, but, like, if you do the research on that fucking wolf, there's a lot of fucking history behind that wolf. You know what I'm saying? So, and mind you, this half man, half animal thing is not, a far concept. And then, like, I was telling you about Jabal and Jubal, who were the sons of Cain. You know what I'm saying? I believe Jabal was the shepherd king. He was the first one who, like I said, he was the first one that basically started sleeping with the animals. You see what I'm saying? Jabal. He was the one that introduced that whole culture of like sleeping with animals. But then you had Jubal, who was his brother, who played the flute, but it was called the Pan flute. Like now, if you don't know who Pan is, Pan, he used to play the flute. Pan was like this fucking goat god. Like he was half man, half goat. Like he was like this. It was kind of the same shit as the Wookiees. Kind of like when you initially look, like if you go see the old Clash of the Titans, I believe they had Pan was in it. Pan was basically like when you refer to the Capricorn devil, like when they say the devil rules Capricorn, the image a lot of times that they show you is Pan. Like that version of the devil, like with the goat head and the goat bottom, and he playing on the flute and shit like this. That's Pan. You see what I'm saying? Pan was he ruled Jubal. Jubal was, like I said, he was the son of Cain. So they knew what the fuck this shit was, man. Like they knew who Pan was. They was out there in the fucking desert worshiping these motherfuckers. Like you would say, like you would go to Pan if you ever went hunting and you didn't catch shit, then you would go to Pan and you would like basically blame it on Pan. You see what I'm saying? So it wasn't a far stretch to believe that, you know, like you talking about the concept of Bigfoot, the missing link. You see what I'm saying? These are not, like if you back then, if you was in the fucking desert all day with fucking animals, goats, oxes, and fucking, it was not a difficult concept to visualize these type of gods. You see what I'm saying? As the gods that was trying to control you and compel you to do things versus a whole different set of gods we're talking about with comedics and shit like this. You see what I'm saying? Hope you're getting this. I really hope you're getting this. You know what I'm saying? And the more you do research in this shit, you will see that it's 100% true. Matter of fact, go watch the movie. It's called The 13th Warrior. You know what I'm saying? With what's his name, man? Antonio Banderas. You see what I'm saying? They was getting chased in the woods by exactly what I'm talking about. These wolves, motherfuckers. They was called, what was they called, man? I think I got that shit in here somewhere. What was they called, man? Man, I can't even wait. It's in here. That shit gotta be in here. The name, that shit's gonna stop. No, it's not in here, I guess. Hold on. Hold on. Is it in? Nah, I guess it ain't in. But yeah, if like I said, they got the same concept when I'm talking about was in the third. You've seen this shit in hella fucking, you know, like werewolves, German motherfucking wolves and shit. Like all this shit come from Germanic folklore, paganism, Thulian concepts. You know what I'm saying? There's a guy I follow on YouTube. His name is the Thulian Perspective. You know what I'm saying? I probably shouldn't even be shouting that motherfucker's page out. It's crazy. I'm even recommending you to go to that motherfucker's page. Because, like, he literally talks about the total opposite of everybody. Like, if you really want to see what I'm saying is the fucking truth, just go to the Thulian Perspective page. And listen to him. Subscribe to that motherfucking channel. Listen to him. Like, you think I'm making this shit up? Like, no, they would tell you, like, this is what the fuck they believe. You know what I'm saying? His name Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Rudolph means famous wolf. Rudolph means famous wolf. Believe it or not. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And like I said, if you go watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you see, man, that's a lot of history. There's a country called the Rus, the R-U-S. The Rus is basically like the Russians. You see what I'm saying? This is when you go further east. You know what I'm saying? A whole different other type of white man. You see what I'm saying? Like they was the ones that basically domesticated the Mongolians. You know what I'm saying? And from their perspective, the Mongolians is basically like, we're talking about the Asiatics, like same shit. It was like they look at them as kind of similar. Like you see the similar belief system if you study what the Russians believe. And that like they look at them as like fucking like warmongering fucking like animals, like wolves, dogs, fucking like if go watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you're gonna see the Russian dude basically domesticate the abominable snowman. Like, it's right there in front of you. They put it right. Go watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He is got like the old one with the 3D effects. It's exactly what the fuck you. Everything that you hear in me saying is you gonna see it right there in that goddamn cartoon. You know what I'm saying? And know that the redhead dude running around with the dog. Man, you got some dogs with him. You see what I'm saying? Follow him around, hunting this fucking abdominal snowman. You see what I'm saying? You gonna see the mythology right there in front of you. You see what I'm saying? These motherfuckers know, like, when they write this folklore, they put it right there in front of you. You just don't know what the fuck you looking at. You see what I'm saying? What is this? The Magalmosian. Magalmosian. Maglemosian. Okay, this is the motherfucker who domesticated the dog. You see what I'm saying? These are the first motherfuckers who, you know what I'm saying? I believe they was like somewhere out of Scandinavian, like ancient Norse shit, like German, basically. These are the first people who, like we said, it's the difference, you know, between animal husbandry versus domestication. You see what I'm saying? The Mangomosians, they were, you call animal husbandry. Domestication did not take place until farms. You see what I'm saying? And the first farms, from what I've read, was in Egypt. You see what I'm saying? They didn't start doing farming until Egypt. You know what I'm saying? But prior up to that point, you know what I'm saying, you would have animals in the house, in the bed, you know what I'm saying? Basically just, you know, shit in the house. You know what I'm saying? Moors, mind you, Moors and Jews did not have to go through Inquisition. So, like, even though Jews, it was known that they didn't believe in Christianity and the Moors didn't believe in Christianity, there was no ever case of Moors or Jews going through a fucking Inquisition. You see what I'm saying? So they were allowed to have their belief system. You know, and Moors were the ones who taught a lot of the Germanic and the like the British whites too. You know what I'm saying? To not to do animal husbandry, but to actually domesticate the animals. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, when I have another video here, you know what I'm saying, talking about the Maccabees, and they're like, you know, when you worship in Jewish folklore, like a lot of, you know, people, black and white, they worship Jewish folklore, you know what I'm saying, because of the fact that it's been beaten into your subconscious through the Inquisition. Like, people forget, like, the church didn't kill thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Now, they didn't kill, you know, black people through the Inquisition, you know what I'm saying? But we had slavery, you know what I'm saying? Like the same concepts of the Christianity that pushed us into slavery is similar to what happened to the German during the Inquisition. This is why you see so many white Germanic men and you know, old school European dudes coming out, you know, not basically totally disregarding Christianity. To this day, there's a huge emergence of occult and pagan shit going on right now in fucking, you know what I'm saying, in Europe. And like I said, just less than fucking like 500 years ago, 600 years ago, you would have been killed over that. Like, this shit, like everything I'm saying in this video would have been fucking called hearsay. They would have killed my ass for this exact same shit that I'm watching, the same shit you read. This is why so much information was lost. So much information was kept underground. So much information was looked at confused. Motherfuckers didn't understand how to translate shit because certain shit was looked at literal and some other shit was looked at figuratively. Certain shit was looked at as like folk tales. Certain shit was looked at as myths. And like, you literally had to have that distinction to understand like why this shit was being told the way it was and how it was reflected the way it was reflected. Like another thing too, like goblins. Like, black people is considered goblins to like certain old Asian folklore. Like, we're considered goblins. And mind you, like the same shit that's that like what they call about ham, like the concept of ham was black, and this is where all black people came from in the Bible. And the same thing, like when they say Cain was cursed, and same shit, even though they tell you right there that they gave him a dog, you see what I'm saying, that the mark of Cain was a dog. A lot of people still tell you the same shit, that mark of Cain was some black, that he turned black. You see what I'm saying? And that he ended up becoming a black man or Jew. You see what I'm saying? Mind you, some people say black people, some people say Jew. But like, even though it's written right there that, you know what I'm saying, that they gave him a dog, a lot of people still tell you that, like, you know, that's what happened to black people. You know what I'm saying? Even though, you know what I'm saying, ancient Egypt predates all of that shit. Like when you go read the Bible right now, that shit don't start in Egypt. Like Egypt predates all that shit, and like you go start reading, it'll tell you like how such came and this happened and this happened, this happened. But like, and then all of a sudden they just walk up in Egypt, and but like where the fuck did Egypt come? Like they don't never tell you in the Bible like where the fuck Egypt started. Like you see what I'm saying? Because it wasn't written from that perspective. You have to have the proper perspective of like, okay, like Mantheo, we talked about at the beginning. Mantheo to tell you like, okay, these motherfucking what they call lepers, same shit that happened to Cain. But you gotta say it like too. The thing that they refer to as lepers, I just learned this shit like a month ago. Like the lepers weren't lepers like how you think of lepers like with disease and even though that was a case, a lot of people saying that these were motherfuckers whose skin turned white or like their skin was brighter than the people that was there. So like me, like to them, I would be considered a leper. You know, although they call it like the Asiatic black man. Basically, like anything that wasn't pure Kemetic, like anything that wasn't like straight from there was seen as like a fucking basically like a hick saw, like a hick. And like I said, this was real pertinent under the Thebes dynasty. Thebes. Thebes was the time in the dynasty where like all of this shit started, like the old Egyptian, the original empire started to get blended, where people couldn't understand the difference between like Greek interpretation of Kemetics versus like real raw, like the real information was buried. To this day, this shit is still buried. Like that's why it's so hard to find a real interpretation on Kemetics. Because like half the shit you read in nowadays is fucking Greek. Or Roman. You know what I'm saying? Like they telling you the motherfucking name is Osiris and Isis and fucking Thoth and all that. Like, they ain't them motherfuckers' real names, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's some Greek shit. You know what I'm saying? So this is the shit that started happening around Thebes. You know what I'm saying? They started mixing the shit up. It started getting all Greek and fucking Hyksos, and it started to get whiter. Like they started to basically, you know what I'm saying, do the same shit they do in the hip hop right now, like with the original shit. Like you gotta understand, this whole shit happened during the age of Thebes in fucking in ancient Egypt. So this is where, you know, the whole concept of, you know, the Hebrew faith and, you know, the Abraham, but this is where all this stuff came out of, that whole era. You go read Exodus 32. I've talked about this on the show. You know, Exodus 32:12, I believe it is, or Exodus 32:11 or 12, I believe Exodus 32:12. You know, where Moses basically told God, you know what I'm saying, right when they had built the golden calf, you know, and God was gonna kill all of the people right there in Exodus 32. God was gonna wipe everybody out, but you know he didn't. And the line of reasoning that Moses used was the fact that it would have made the Egyptians right. That was the first line of reasoning that he used to stop God from wiping out the Hebrew people. You see what I'm saying? He's like, man, you can't do that. That's gonna make the Egyptians right. You took us all the way out of Egypt just to bring us over here to kill us. What's the Egyptians gonna say? They say it right there in Exodus 32. You know what I'm saying? So it's telling you right there, this is not a religion for Egyptians. You know, this is not a religion for, and mind you, like I said, you gotta realize too, like the Egyptians at that time was not the real Egyptians either. Like, you know what I'm saying? That was some Greek shit. That was some fucking Xerxes fucking what you call that shit? Not Palestine, but basically it was some bullshit. It was all mixed up. It was like a bunch of like wild ass cultures all mixed in together. You see what I'm saying? Coming into Egypt trying to learn this shit and then bring it back to their country. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, by this time Egypt was already fucking super diluted. So, you know, make sure you get an understanding of, like, you know, when you read in the Exodus and you reading, you know, all these myths and stuff like this, make sure you understand 4th century, 5th century, 6th century, you know what I'm saying? Also like BC, you know, like 1000 BC, 2000 BC, like the dates, you see what I'm saying? Or like when this shit actually took place. You know what I'm saying? Because if not, like you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know. Like, you know, I believe like the first dynasty of Egypt was like 3100 BC. And that's just the first established dynasty. You see what I'm saying? The Netu Neder goes back at least another 2,000-3,000 years prior to that. You're talking like 5,000-6,000 BC. You see what I'm saying? You start looking into, like, you know, the Norse religions, like, you know, about Scandinavian and like Odin and Thor, these type of guys, these guys date back, you talking, what's like, you talking, I believe it was like 900 BC, something like that, like maybe 800 BC. You see what I'm saying? About maybe uh, a couple thousand, you know what I'm saying, maybe like 1 or 2,000 years after the whole thing, you know what I'm saying, with, you know, the Thebes dynasty, you know, when, you know, all these new concepts coming up into, you look at the Thebes dynasty of ancient Egypt, you see what I'm saying, and really get an understanding of that. What's called the Thebes Revolt. Look that up, the Thebes Revolt. Because you start to see, like, this is when all these other countries start coming up in Egypt, taking all of these concepts and then changing them around and then taking it back to their country and creating all these new fucking myths and shit like that. Because they basically did what the fuck Moses did, and they was an outsider who basically infiltrated Egypt, got all of the shit, and basically, you know what I'm saying, and took it back to it. Hold on one second, I'll be right back. Matter of fact, hold on, cut this music off. Nah, I ain't gonna cut the music on. Give me a second. So, you ever heard the story of the boy who cried wolf? You know what I'm saying? Or the story of the three little pigs and the wolf. You know what I'm saying? Or they have a story called Goldilocks. You know what I'm saying? And the wolf. You know, different folklore started to come out. You know what I'm saying? That had wolves talking and like the ability for like wolves who was like this sly, slick motherfucker who was trying to like convince you to. He was going to basically like trick you into eating you type shit. You see what I'm saying? And you got the story of the boy who cried wolf, which is like wolf means that you were panicking. And mind you, the word panic comes from pan. We were talking about pan earlier. Well, panic and pan is the same shit basically. So I'm saying, so like when you talk about the boy who cried wolf, you're talking about like summoning panic, summoning, you know, wolf energy, you know what I'm saying, when there's really no wolf energy, that type shit. You see what I'm saying? So, but they use the concept of the wolf as the danger, as the threat, as the outsider, as the germ man. You know what I'm saying? So, these type of folklore started to spread, you know what I'm saying, right when, you know what I'm saying, same time when the Inquisition was kicking off. You know what I'm saying? When they was killing Germans left and right, you know what I'm saying, Vikings, they was killing these motherfuckers left and right for their belief system and locking motherfuckers up. Right around this time, they started telling all these stories about, you know, talking wolves trying to, you know what I'm saying, eat people. Um, uh, what is this? Oh yeah, but side note, y'all know I talk about Smith a lot of this channel. You'll say Tubal Cain. You look this name up, Tubal Cain. That was Jabal and Jubal's brother. He was the first Smith. You know what I'm saying? Literally, he was Smith. That's the whole archetype of Smith came from. He was the brother of the same dudes we talking about in this video. And there was another concept of a guy named Pushan, Pushan, who was basically similar to Pan, and we talking about the missing link or Chewbacca or fucking Abominable Snowman, this same type of creature. You know what I'm saying? You see that Pushan was a similar hairy dog wolf looking entity that Germanic, you know what I'm saying, Eastern European deities used to worship, you know what I'm saying, who studied occultism and pagan and shit like this. And also too, we're talking about Thulian. I should have mentioned the Vrils. I spoke about the Vrils around this page too. The Vril is spelled V-R-I-L. I was one of the first people to ever talk about the Vrils. You know what I'm saying? Like as far as introducing it into basically looking as a foreigner, you see what I'm saying, and the type of information I'm giving, you see what I'm saying. I had never found nobody, you know what I'm saying, studying comedic, studying, you know what I'm saying, New Age spirituality, stuff like this, who would ever discuss the vrills. But then, like, once I started to talk about it, I started to see information about it left and right. But the vrills were basically, they have a similar belief in regards to Thulian, occult, esoteric beliefs. You see what I'm saying? And that they are a supreme race of beings. If you heard a concept called the Aryan race, you see what I'm saying? They're kind of basically influenced by real concepts, and that like the reals are like the gods, and like the Aryans are like the people who worship, you know what I'm saying, really on. Real is uh like literally the practice of Thulian shit. So like these are motherfuckers who be making UFOs. These are motherfuckers who be fucking with like electromagnetism and trying to make shit levitate off the fucking ground and shit like this. Like, you see what I'm saying? But at the same time, they, you know, like if you know about the SS and like the Wolf, like there's a game called Wolfenstein. Like I don't know if you heard of a game called Wolfenstein. It came out back in the day. It was a game called Doom, and then had Wolfenstein, which is basically like it was like the same shit. Like it was like this dude who was running up in Nazi Germany trying to stop all the Thulians and shit like this. You see what I'm saying? Because they were like, but he was like a wolf. It's some German shit, man. Like so much shit gets buried, and a lot of the same shit that happened with black folks happened with Germans, man. If you do the research, you see what I'm saying? The same way they buried a lot of their gods and a lot of their belief system, a lot of that shit happened more than once with Germans. And then like even after World War II, you know what I'm saying? You know, after Hitler fell, they had this shit called martial law. I mean, it was not martial law, Marshall's Plan. You see what I'm saying? Which is basically like martial law. It's the same shit, like the concept of martial law. You know what I'm saying? All this shit is witchcraft. You know what I'm saying? If you fucking understand like what the fuck I'm saying. But like Marshall's Plan, look this shit up, was some shit that happened after Germany fell. You see what I'm saying? Like it was like some Pisces shit. It was like it wasn't Christianity, but it was like capitalism, and then like they basically sold out. Like Germany sold out. Like you gotta understand, like after World War II happened, Nazi Germany, all of Europe, all this shit looked like a fucking. It looked like it looked like a third world country right now. Like you see what I'm saying? So it was like, man, we got to rebuild all this shit. All the Nazis, it's basically be illegal to be a Nazi right now. It's basically illegal to study Thuliism. It's basically illegal to fucking, you know any of this information I'm telling you right now. You see what I'm saying? It was fucking illegal. You see what I'm saying? It's basically the same shit that happened in the Inquisition. It was like the whole Germanic mind frame is constantly like getting wiped out every couple of fucking years as far as that, like they belief system and like, you know what I'm saying, they're a cult. So the Marshall Plan was like, okay, the US invested, I think it was like $12 billion at the time. Like not today, that would be like $120 billion, some crazy shit like that. Like, so I'm saying back then, like $12 billion, it's fucking insane amount of money. I mean, back then and today, $12 billion is an insane amount of money. But like back then, $12 billion, nigga, that shit is retarded. You know what I'm saying? So like the US basically bought hella stock in the rebuilding of Europe. You know what I'm saying? And not just Europe, but Germany. And like they made what was called the National Republic of Germany or some shit like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where it's like, what the fuck was his name, man? The first president, I can't even think of his name. The first president of Germany after Hitler got the fuck up out of there. I can't think of his name. You see what I'm saying? But like he was basically like they made him like a not an emperor, but like basically like an ambassador. You see what I'm saying? Because he was affiliated with like, you know what I'm saying, London, Britain, to France, London, Britain, and like, you know what I'm saying, the UN that was being built, like this whole new world order that was being built. And like, you know what I'm saying, Nazi Germany wasn't gonna be no part of that shit. So they was gonna inject just hella money into Germany. So like the main cause of this shit was to stop the spread of like communism and like stop the spread of like the shit that Hitler was kicking. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was like, man, if you had hella money, it's gonna be harder to convince you to become a fucking communist. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because you ain't trying to give up half your motherfucking money. Like, you know what I'm saying? So they was like basically the solution to stop the concept of Thulian beliefs, Thulian, you know what I'm saying, occult belief system, shit like this. The best way to stop this shit was the Marshall Plan, was to inject same shit they do to black folks, is they just inject hella money into their fucking whole economy. You know what I'm saying? Basically, all of them fucking soldiers, all of those, you know what I'm saying, SS soldiers, all of the motherfucking people who's in the military, they all became farmers, they all became factory workers, they all became, you know, people who did private trade, investors, bankers, and shit like this. Like they were no longer wolves. You know what I'm saying? They became Christians, and this happened several times throughout. Like if you understand the real, um, you understand what really happened to Germanic, you know, white men. You know what I'm saying? So you know, a lot of them fucking hate Christianity, man. You know, this is like I said, a lot of reason why you look at the fall of Rome, you know, and not just the fall of Rome, but like, you know, there's a couple articles online you can really start to do research on how a lot of Germany became Christian. You see what I'm saying? Do research on that shit. It's man, you know, they run hella witchcraft on Germany, man. You know, you look at the Berlin Wall, shit like that's a whole nother concept. You see what I'm saying? Like the way that they split that shit up, it's a whole nother fucking can of worms. You know what I'm saying? But like, yeah, it's I only like I said made this video to expose a lot of information as far as just knowing it. Like there's way other belief system out here other than, you know, just Jewish folklore, you know what I'm saying, that like other people around the world believe. You know what I'm saying? So do your research, man. Don't let this shit intimidate you. You know what I'm saying? I really just, you know, a lot of people just listen to my page, they vibe out and just listen to it. I know I just be planting seeds, you know what I'm saying, to get the ball rolling, get you to go do the research. You see what I'm saying? Like don't be intimidated by this information. Because you can be under somebody's holds like we technically, you know what I'm saying? America was almost Viking, I guess I want to say. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people don't know, like, I think it's like October 9th is Leif Erikson Day. Like, if you don't know who Leif Erikson is really the guy who discovered America. Matter of fact, they got a coin now for Leif Erikson. You look this shit up, you buy one. You know what I'm saying? Leif Erikson he was Nordic. You know what I'm saying? He was the one that really came over. It was like maybe 300-400 years before Christopher Columbus even came over. It was like 1100 AD, something like that. Maybe like 1000 AD. Leif Erikson and a bunch of Nordic cats from Scandinavia, motherfuckers, you know, Anglo-Saxon fucking white motherfuckers came over here and basically, you know, discovered this land long ass time ago. You know what I'm saying? The only thing is that they didn't come with the Colombian age. You know, Christopher Columbus is what calls it Colombian, you know, Columbia, District of Columbia. You know what I'm saying? This is why we're under the District of Columbia instead of the District of Leif Erikson. You know what I'm saying? Or the Nordic shit, because Columbus and what they call Indo-European motherfuckers end up settling over here, along with France, you know what I'm saying, other regions of Spain and shit like this. They the ones that came over here and established you know, the spoken law. You know what I'm saying? I mean not spoken law, written law. You know what I'm saying? You got to remember the ancient Germanic tribes, the Viking tribes, shit like this. They didn't know how to read and write. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of the first documentation of a lot of this shit, what I'm talking about, came from Romans. Romans was one of the first people who like basically domesticated some of these until Rome fell. You know what I'm saying? But like there was just like how there was a build up to the fall of Egypt, there was a build up to the fall of Rome, and that same similar shit happened. Like hella fucking Germanic tribes just started moving into Rome. You know what I'm saying? And then they basically ransacked that whole shit. I think it was like 500 AD, like 400 or 500 AD. Maybe 600 AD, something like that. It was a fall of Rome. You know what I'm saying? But if you look up, it's the same exact shit. Germanic tribes fucked the whole shit up. You know what I'm saying? Christianity is one of the main tools that has always been used to tame Germanic people because these motherfuckers think they wolves. You see what I'm saying? So like you gotta understand, like that was like since the beginning of time, there's always been a struggle with like Nordic Viking type white men who understood what Christianity was doing to their belief system. Like, you see what I'm saying? So I really encourage y'all to do more research on this shit, man, because, you know, like I said, I'm just really giving y'all the K-Blao file on this shit. But, you know, the more research you do on this, the more you gonna see. I'm not making none of this shit up. You see what I'm saying? So, on that note, I'm about to roll another blunt. And, I think I'm about to play some motherfucking PlayStation 4. I don't know, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. But hey, yeah, like I said, make sure y'all sign up for my Patreon because there's gonna be less and less videos that y'all get like this. I've already got the Patreon cracking. For the people who are on my Patreon, I appreciate y'all subscribing. You so say I put the I'm gonna be putting way more content on there. You know what I'm saying? As the shit is progressing. Like I said, this video, a lot of these channels, these videos are gonna be getting a lot shorter and shorter. A lot of this type of content is gonna be going on the Patreon. So that's why I wanted to make this content tonight. And then like this is a little bit longer, but trust and believe, like this is the type of content that's going on the Patreon, and like you're gonna start to notice that these videos on here are gonna be getting shorter and shorter. So I highly, highly suggest you, if you want more raw information, rare information you can't find nowhere else, like how you can on this channel, make sure you subscribe to my Patreon. A lot of people come and just take my information, man. They just run with it, and they like, you know what I'm saying? It'd be like, man, come on, dog. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least let motherfuckers know I'm out here. You know what I'm saying? You know, you can't find this type of information nowhere, man. Like nowhere. You know, nowhere. I know y'all know this shit. So, you know, make sure you subscribe to Patreon. You get way more premium content on there. All right.
I'm fast forwarding like fast spirits. You can't ignore it. Close the building. Make the trap house. Means expedition. Have a seat here, take a listen. It's real spitting, you still wishing. Bigger vision, nigga, here's the difference. I do the shit that you can't do. I move the bricks that you can't move. You mad as fuck, cause it's real life. I got the juice and I show and prove. Close the trunk, I'm on a mission. My tires spinning, my lane switching. They camcording, I'm fast forwarding like fast spirits. You can't ignore it. Close the building, make the trap house, clear the table, bring the maps out. Here's the blueprint, about to do this. Get in line, nigga, we the rulers. Blau is hot hood, extra coolest. This some new shit, straight exclusive. I'm Doc Brown, nigga, I'm the future. Yo, main bitch gave me Medusa. Yo, click bout likes and shares. We don't like to share cause our type is rare. We fuck dykes, your type is square. And extra weird, stand over there. Paint the picture, make it extra rare. And 100 proof, just like Everclear. Leaving your girl with her legs in the air like she tripped on the rug and she fell down the stairs. Damn, you think it's a joke, that's the reason you broke and you got all that smoke. But I hope that you didn't think you get away. Cut on that beat, I'ma kill him today. Hood X is multiplying, 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 multiplying. Hood X is multiplying, 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 multiplying. One thing's for certain, Hood X is working. We bout to hurt and pull back the curtain. All that flirting, that led to squirting, that led to twerking. When I put the perp in, I hit his beat and I shake my head cause I know it's on and these niggas dead. The game is mine, the game is locked. I'm in the streets and they in the bed. You can call the feds, you can call the cops, you can call them SWAT, you can call the chief. Beef is beef, nigga, I'm prepared. We counting money in barber chairs. Grenade crash right through the window. Put the pistol right to his tempo. This is more than instrumental. I kosher notion, these street credentials. I like a bitch hella thick like growing pains. She be making tapes like Lois Lane. He got a frozen chain but wasn't chose for fame. I'm Pat Sajak, baby, I know the game. I'm an architect, you rap for free and disregard the check. I'll palm your neck with a Rolodex. You start to sweat, that's called a threat. Bomb your set like a blitzkrieg, then turn your crib into Swiss cheese. Also first to the 15th, then switch degrees like 10 speeds. 16th, I'm still comping like a sniper rifle on the hill dumping. I ain't never gotta steal from you, I'm killmonger, this real hunger. I think I perfected my aim. I go for the neck and the chain. I got a collection like change. Put some respect on my name. On your mark, set your watches, bitch, we going in. I'm talking money to you, that's a language you can't comprehend. Did I go against the grain, nigga? It depends, she mad I fucked the roommate. I told her that we can still be friends. You can't swim in this water because it get deep. You stuck on stupid like you got 6 feet. You running in circles like it's a track meet. Fuck you talking about, my nigga? I jack beats. Chopping the brick and we breaking it down. Hop in the whip and we riding around. Taking the city, we choosing the time till we finding the spot and we locking it down. Haters is talking with nothing to say. They riding on cushion, I'm rolling on hay. Rolling and ducking and hiding from me. Nothing to say, they tucking they heat. All of these niggas got nothing on me. They talking they shit but can't fuck with Malik. You liking the shit that I do to this beat? Wait till you see what I do to the streets. Fuck a Maybach, nigga, I got a limousine. And fuck a Desert Eagle, I got magazine. I done fucked around, became a millionaire. Look around here, my check is clear. This familiar feeling ain't feeling fair. She juking hard in her underwear, but I ain't scared. I came prepared. I hopped up on it like Nike, yeah. I'm killing the beat, they feeling defeat. While you chillin' like a villain and you falling asleep. I'm finna make a killing while I'm chillin' the street. And if it's anything for me, you ain't gotta pay for it, you can get it for free. The phony niggas know they gotta get away from me, cause I'm getting cheddar like a macaroni and cheese. You don't wanna see me grab a Mac 11 and squeeze. You don't wanna see me back in traffic ducking the D's. There's no stressing, I got semi-automatic weapons. Nigga finna learn a lesson just for fucking with me. I'm like Floyd Mayweather, can't nobody do it better. And if you thinking that you can, nigga, jump in the ring. And you ain't never seen a nigga sitting game like this. But this is how it sound when they come from a king. It's like Hood X is multiplying. That ass is multiplying. My money multiplying.